TV channel to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on smart TVs 2016 forward. Now on Candid Frank Live, joining me is Aaron William Freeland. Hello, Aaron. If I die
Yeah.
right now, it'll be because I died eating health food. I'm eating spinach.
Well, as long as you choke on it, that's absolutely fine. We know that you're putting it in the right place.
Oh boy, oh boy. That was. Oh, I gagged a little bit on the part that I ate there the last bit before we went to air. Um, and by the way, spinach, you can't see spinach because of the green screen. So I'm eating.
Oh, you're eating invisible stuff. That's awesome.
It's awesome, isn't it? How are things going with you?
Not too bad. Not too bad. It was a good day at work. Glad that I'm here. Glad that I'm away from the office for a little bit. Get to do the show, and then I'm off again on Friday. So Friday morning, I'll be taking off for Montreal. For our avid viewers, I apologize in advance. I will be going to see the Toronto Rock play the New York Riptide at Place Belle in Laval, Quebec.
And I'll be making a trip to Mexico, paying
Excellent.
homage to beaches, sand, and heat in the atmosphere of an all-inclusive. Not have to do anything, not clean, not cook, just drink and eat whatever I want.
See, that sounds
Ladies and
heavenly, sir.
trust me, we're going to turn it into heaven if we can. Oh, let's get on. Let's get on to the reason why we're here. And the reason we're here is to talk about sports right now. Major League Baseball new uniforms drawing negative reviews from players. Uh-oh.
Yeah, as most people who collect jerseys like myself know, the Major League Baseball is moving to Nike for their new uniform suppliers this year. Nike has been reportedly using a new fabric. Um, they're calling it their Vapor Premier template. Sorry, it's designed to be lighter and more breathable and all that sort of fun stuff. But unfortunately, the design and the feeling of the fabric leaves a little to be desired. A lot of players are saying that it actually feels more like a knockoff replica. Hey, we have that jersey at home from Wish sort of jersey as opposed to an actual Major League Baseball jersey. So um, that's one of the tough things that they're currently working through with their jersey supplier. Hopefully, they'll be able to get it right. Frank, unfortunately, I appear to have lost audio.
Well, that's my fault. I didn't want you to hear me crunching the bag. And apparently, I ever heard from some players that they said that's not a very nice thing to say about Wish, comparing these jerseys to. Oh,
Timu?
oh, oh, not good at all. Manoa's return, one of many storylines as Jays begin camp. Pitchers and
Yeah.
catchers.
Sorry, go ahead, Frank.
No, that's it. Pitchers and catchers.
Yeah, I mean, he was an American League Cy Young Award finalist back in 2022, but he kind of struggled a little bit last year. They tried to send him down to Buffalo for a little bit of a conditioning stint. He said no, um, so he didn't pinch once he actually got down there. But reports coming out of Dunedin say that he's lost a good solid 30 to 35 pounds, which is only going to help his mechanics and is only going to help him in the long run. So that's good to hear. Um, on the heels of that as well, as some of you may know, the team had offered $18.05 million to Vladdy Guerrero Jr., but it went to arbitration where he ended up getting awarded 19.9, which is what he was requesting. So at least we have him back. Um, Don Mattingly is going to take on a slightly larger role with the Blue Jays this season. Um, they added the newly created position of offensive coordinator to his title. So that means that he'll have a little more pull, I think, which is, not necessarily a bad thing.
Maybe a little more run.
Well, hopefully.
Now, a little more on Alex Manoah. Many people are also stating that they're hoping some of the weight he lost is some of his attitude.
Yeah, there was a lot of talk about the negative attitude from him when it came to that sort of thing, especially last year when he refused to report. So I'm glad to see that that sort of cleared
Yep.
itself up a
Hopefully it
little bit.
has. I think he has to think of himself as more of a young pitcher looking to create a reputation. He's not a veteran who has won, you know, a handful of Cy Young awards.
and the hearts and minds of all of the fans.
Exactly. So the Blue Jays, Yariel Rodriguez contract up for $47.5 million. Who's calling me now?
Not sure. It was a big actual signing. One of the ones that they made a little bit more noise about. They originally announced this deal on Friday, which called for a salary of $2 million this year, $5 million each in 2025, 26, and $6 million in 2027. He also has a $6 million player option for 2028, and if he declines that option, the Blue Jays have a $10 million club option. Um, so it looks like they're finally trying to nail down the tail end of their rotation. He's had a 2.45 ERA over 730 innings for Japan in last year's World Baseball Classic. Um, Hopefully, we'll be able to get everything done. He did have a decent season with the Chunichi Dragons, so that's something to look forward to.
Let's go over to the Canadian Football League. Saskatchewan opened CFL free agency with a huge bang.
Oh yeah, they signed 7 players on Tuesday. Let's see, there was AJ Ouellette. There was also Jamarcus Hardrick. He was the West Division's top lineman last season. O'Day also looked to shore up with the new head coach Corey Mace. He added Jalen Edwards Cooper, linebacker Jameer Thurman, defensive lineman Malik Carney, and Canadian twin linebackers Justin and Jordan Herdman Reed.
Both of them.
Yeah, it was a bit of a disappointment, obviously, for Argos fans that AJ wasn't going to be back.
Yeah, no kidding. CFL All-Star Jamal Peters among 3 players signed by the Ticats.
Yeah, I know this. Unfortunately, I know this is ground that you covered with David already, so I do apologize for a bit of the repetition there.
Don't.
But the Ticats signed free agent defensive back Jamal Peters, as well as receiver Luther Hakunavanu and receiver Terry Godwin II on Tuesday. Peters joins the Ticats after 3 seasons with the Double Blue. He started 13 games last season and had 13 tackles. Hakunavanu signed a 2-year deal with Hamilton. Played with the Stamps, and that was his 3rd season last year with the Stampeders. And Godwin started 19 games with the Ticats, registering 68 catches for 864 yards and 6 touchdowns.
And the Grey Cup champion Alouettes signed 4 in CFL free agency.
Yeah, a lot of people are coming out of the gate hot. I'm absolutely loving all of these different signings here. They signed defensive lineman Derek Wigan and Isaac Adeyemi Berglund, running back Sean Thomas Erlington, and receiver Tevin Jones. So again, that's a big start for them. Wiggins joins the Alouettes after spending 7 seasons with the Stampeders. Adeyemi Berglund spent the last 3 seasons with the Stampeders as well. Erlington returns to his hometown following 6 seasons with Hamilton. And Jones spent the last 2 seasons with the Roughies.
BC signed free agents Robertson, Prukop, and Hardy to 1-year deals.
Yeah, so these seem to be more in line with the usual CFL contracts. I know that we've seen a lot for 2 or 3 different 2 or 3 years, but these guys, they basically Betts basically left, signed with the Lions, which is good because he doesn't have to change his business cards. They also signed Pete Robinson to a 1-year deal. He spent the last 3 seasons with the Roughies, registering 86 tackles, 21 sacks, and 6 forced fumbles. They also signed Dakota Prukop and Canadian receiver Jake Hardy each to 1-year contracts each. Prukop kind of fills a need for the Lions. Dane Evans retired after the 2023 season, and Vernon Adams Jr. is going to remain the club's starter.
Let's go over the National Hockey League and wait, hang on a second. The Argos, we've got them. They signed Adetoboye to a contract extension. I think he's going to be a real surprise for the Argos.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Frank. I cut you off again there.
And their fans. No, don't worry about it.
But it's good to see Adetoboye back, as well as Kadeem Carey. So there was a signing that broke earlier today. Glad to see that. There was a lot of talk about AJ Ouellette going to another team. A lot of Toronto fans were rightfully upset by that. Looking at the fact that he got 160K instead of the sun and the moon, which I'm reasonably certain he could have asked for and gotten had Toronto had the cap space. We now have reasonable replacements in there. Not to mention Tunde Adeleke and Fraser Sopek, who were signed as well. So that is good news for the Argonauts. As much as there are players that are leaving, there are also some very quality players that they're signing as
Like
well.
Kadeem Carey, formerly of the Calgary Stampeders.
Yes, sir. I'm very excited about seeing him.
Okay, the National Hockey League Columbus Blue Jackets support Patrick Laine with $10,000 in donations following podcast's insensitive suicide remark.
Yeah, so as some of you who follow the National Hockey League may know, Patrick Laine entered the NHLPA's Player Assistance Program back on January 28th. The B&B Roundtable, which is a purported Blue Jackets fan podcast, um, were complaining about the number of injuries and the fact that he was contemplating what they called a Remington retirement, which was not well received by the rest of hockey Twitter or the
Wow.
especially the fans. Yeah,
Read the
a
room.
very classless and off-color joke that never should have been made. Um, and if they were looking for engagement, they got it. Patrick Laine responded directly to them. Members of the B&B Roundtable podcast issued a 14-minute apology on Tuesday, as well as deleted the show's X account. Um, Octagon Hockey, who represent Laine, also chimed in, saying, "While we appreciate the podcast's apology for their remarks, words have consequences. Suicide is not a punchline. We remain steadfast in our condemnation of such language and continue to advocate for mental health awareness. Patrick's commitment to promoting mental well-being stands strong." So as a result of that, a whole bunch of fans got together and donated to his different charitable societies that he has. Now, Laine hasn't actually played since December 14th after breaking his collarbone, and he's actually only been limited to 18 games this season. His point total means that at least $10,000 will be going to the cause from him, and Blue Jackets fans also made 200 plus donations, totaling more than $10,000.
Let's go over to Suzuki Slavkovsky as they lead the Canadians to a 5-0 win over the Ducks.
Yeah, now this was actually a relatively easy game for Caden Primo. He only actually had to make 13 saves to get the first shutout of his career. That was his first start since January 20th. Slavkovsky, Suzuki, first off, extended his point streak to a career high 8 games. He got 13 points over those 8 games. Slavkovsky, who connected with him all night, extended his own point streak to 6 games with 5 goals and 4 assists, and actually got the first 3-point game of his career. It looks like Slavkovsky has come around the corner on this. So.
Tkachuk registers hat trick as Senators squash Blue Jackets 6-3.
This was a very fun game to watch. Michelle and I were going back and forth between the Leaf game and this, and to watch Tkachuk score 2 goals within about 40 seconds was absolutely hilarious. Dmitry Voronkov, Boone Jenner, and Jack Roslovic scored for the Blue Jackets, but with Tkachuk, Ridley Greig, and Eric Branstrom also scoring for the Senators. This is now they're on a 4-game win streak now, which is good news for them. In that they're no longer looking as sad sack as they were. Bad news in that they're harming their lottery prospect.
Next, we've got the McDavid nets 6 assists. Oilers clip Red Wings 8-4.
This was a game where I thought Connor was actually going to be in on every single goal. Just the way it was looking, 6 assists, 8-4. It's one of those dream sort of production games that he had there. Edmonton is actually 26-5-0 in their last 31 games. They've done a fantastic job of clawing their way back up their standings. Detroit, unfortunately, feels that they were losing their edge. They really collapsed in the third period, which wasn't typical for them. So it was a bit of a surprise to see, but glad to see that the Oilers are still continuing on their hot streak.
And let's talk about the Canucks.
Sure. Connor Garland chipped in, Dakota Joshua and Hoglander all led the Canucks past the Blackhawks. This was one of those games where it could have been a trap game for Vancouver, especially seeing as it was Chicago. But Garland had 2. Dakota Joshua had a goal and 2 assists. So Nils Hoglander actually scored for his third straight game. The Canucks are now 36, 12, and 6 with 78 points over the course of the season. They're still where they should be, right up at the top of the league.
Well, it turns out that pretty mild mannered Riley suspended for 5 games for cross checking.
So many folks saw this. I'm sure we don't need to relitigate it over again, but Ridley Grieg, in his infinite wisdom, decided to put a clapper home on an empty cage from the Rockstar spot with 5 seconds left. Riley took exception, cross checked him in the face. There is no argument that that should have been a suspendable offense. I thought 5 games was a little excessive, but as soon as they offered him an in person hearing, I realized that's the way it was going to go. Um, you shouldn't have ought to lost your temper like that, but these things happen. So, but on the bright side, the Leafs seem to do okay without him. So
6 of one, half dozen of the other.
how do you think they did, Frank? Did you catch
Well,
the game?
well, yeah, and they did well. They won the game. They played really really well. But I want to go back to what Riley did and why he did it. Riley did what he did because of the reputation the Maple Leaf teams have had under this regime. And by this regime, I mean under the Shanahan regime. The team has a lot of talent, but does nothing to protect them. We have watched in the playoffs, we've watched players get abused of the Leafs. We've seen Austin Matthews smiling on his face, with a smile on his face, being thrown hither and yon. We've watched the kind of antics that go against teams that don't offer resistance to. And here it is now, it gets to the point where now so little has been done historically. Such a reputation has been developed by the Leafs as Maple Leafs as being, I don't know, more of a party boy. They're not a construction crew. They know how to have fun when it's fun, but they don't know how to work when it's time to work. And now what you've got is you've got a veteran for the Maple Leafs who has leadership qualities that many of them don't have. And I would suggest even ones that carry letters on their chest, other guys that carry letters on their chest. And now what you're seeing the frustration of the actual possibility that they're not going to make the playoffs. And there are players on the team that have looked back historically. Am I putting words in his mouth? Am I reading his mind? Maybe not. But what I am saying is, from my simple-minded view, you're looking at a player with a lot of class, a lot of respect, and a true believer in doing the best he can every day he plays. And for me, this event highlights the fact that he's frustrated. That one incident was not enough for him to take it to that extent. That incident, if it was a isolated incident that had nothing to do with anything else, he would have walked up to him, offered to fight, and when the guy didn't fight, he would have, that was an instantaneous, that was anger looking for a trigger. And that moment was the trigger, Aaron. I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm looking at what caused him to get so angry and how come he got so angry. And what happened there doesn't make sense to me. I'm just saying. I played hockey. I understand about frustration, but I'm not an NHL player. Never was. But that was such a small trigger to create such a harsh reaction. It speaks to underlying issues, which is what I think I said are.
No, and you're not wrong, Frank. There is a lot of frustration surrounding this team. There is. Reeves wasn't brought in to fight everybody. Reeves was brought in to try to change the culture in the room and to give the boys a bit of a spine and to get them to stand up for themselves.
Well, to do what you've heard, and you and I have heard many times. When a guy like that is on the ice, every other player plays about a foot taller.
Yep. And we need more of those players. And bringing Reeves in as they have is I believe management's attempt to sort of get everybody to stand taller on their own without having to have one guy go out and do it all for them.
Well, the guy they wanted was Lucic, and they didn't get him.
Wow.
He's
Lucic
the guy
wants to
they
give it up
wanted.
straight anyways, but that's okay.
But I'm just saying that's the
Yeah.
guy they originally wanted, right? And it's not about, the problem is that in this town, there's a look in this town. It's a very politically correct organization. So for them to do what needs to be done to win hockey games, it's not in their DNA, in this organization's DNA. Everything has to be, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to treat people fairly, to be good to people, to not be abusive, to not do all these lovely things that I'm being sarcastic here, all these things that can happen, right? I'm 100% behind that. The problem is the line gets blurred at where now you're a sport where controlled, and I say this not with tongue in cheek, I actually say it seriously, where controlled violence is an asset in winning. That's the reality. Maybe during the season people can argue with me about it being true, but baby, when the playoffs start, controlled violence becomes a little uncontrolled, which we've seen from the National Hockey League by virtue of how they officiate and how they suspend in the playoffs. It's extreme or less, it's never consistent. And as long as the league allows a little less than controlled violence, the teams and organizations that want to play it controlled, like the Leafs, believe it or not, I'm saying this, I can't believe I'm saying it, but I believe it's true, that they're so busy wanting to be doing the right thing. The right thing, unfortunately, doesn't win you hockey games. Does that mean you go around cross checking people in the head? No. Does that mean you slash people across the head? No. Does it mean you hit people from behind when they're not looking? No. But what it does mean is when one of your teammates has that happen to them, you're supposed to say something, do something. And that's what the Leafs don't do.
Well, hopefully one of these days they'll get it through their thick skulls that that's what they're actually supposed to be doing. Um, for the time being, though, it just looks like we're still going through the motions. And now the Leafs are without their best defenseman, their most consistent, one of their most consistent players, for the next 4 games. But he'll be back against Vegas, so that's small comfort there.
Absolutely. It is what it is. Life is not kind sometimes. We all enjoy life, but as Leaf fans know and have experienced, actually, and there's quite a few Leaf fans, not many left that know what it's like to have a Leaf team win a Stanley Cup. I'm in that very small crowd, and let's just say I'm not 18, and pretty much 90% of the Leaf population that loves the Maple Leafs have no clue what it's like to see a jersey draped set of arms grabbing the Stanley Cup and holding it into the air, screaming out of adulation and just dream making with the fans. That hasn't happened here, and unfortunately, it's not going to happen anytime soon. That this organization cannot do what it needs to do, and they've handcuffed themselves. But here's what I'm going to say about the Leafs in that. I don't want to leave everybody with that, that unholy, nasty thought. The fact is, any team can win anytime if they get hot. The question is, how lucky can you do with lack of injuries, which is a key, because especially if you don't have depth, you can't have injuries or suspensions for that matter. So there's always hope. Leaf fans can hope.
This is very true. And, the fact that they actually managed to win last night on the strength of a hat trick from Bobby McMahon, with Tavares out, with Riley suspended, and with Mitch Marner out, both Tavares and Marner out for illness. Um, you gotta wonder how will the depth guys that they've picked up be able to step up for them.
I have to work really hard, Aaron. And
Yeah.
anyway, I know it must be hard as a Leaf fan. I know it's hard for me to watch Leaf fans watch what's going on. That's always been my problem over the years, is watching the suffering that goes on. And it unfortunately, when people look back 10 years, 15 years, I think they'll find that the Leafs missed some chances. And unfortunately, it was because they just didn't play the game of hockey the way it's played. Not the way I want it played, not the way you want it played, but the way it's played and what we see. And that's the way it goes.
Yep. Well, like I said, there's always hope for the future, and that's what the Maple Leaf organization is extremely good at selling. So,
Well, hopefully they can do something that raises hope, because right now, when your players don't have much hope and your players are that frustrated as Morgan Riley was, you know something's wrong and something needs to be fixed. That's the underlying issue here. Thanks for doing this, Aaron.
hey, glad to be here, Frank.
I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching Candid Frank Live. And this was a bit of Leaf talk at the end with Aaron here. Our views on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For Candid Frank Live, other news, sports, entertainment, and programming we watch and share with you, check out spanglishworld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it here, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody.